I used to think moments announced themselves before they mattered. A swell of music, a warning in your chest, something. But the moment that changed everything for me came wrapped in the dust of an ordinary afternoon, with the smell of burnt wires and cheap coffee. And she walked in like she had nothing to do with any of it. It was a slow day at the repair shop. I'd been fixing a cracked phone screen, hunched over the counter under that awful humming tube light that makes everyone look tired. I remember rubbing my eyes, hearing the door chime, and looking up, expecting the usual, someone impatient or someone scrolling while talking to me. Not her. She hesitated in the doorway as if the threshold itself carried some decision she wasn't sure about. Not dramatic, just a pause. A breath that lasted 1 second too long. She wore a navy shirt, sleeves rolled up as if she'd done it absent-mindedly while walking. No jewelry except a thin bracelet. Hair tied, but a few strands already slipping free. She looked like someone who didn't get flustered often. But today, something had thrown her off. "Is this where you fix laptops?" she asked. Her voice wasn't soft, more steady, but clipped at the ends, like she was trying not to reveal something. "Yeah," I said, trying to play it cool. "As long as it's not completely dead." She gave a small, almost amused smile. Mine might be. When she placed it on the counter, our fingers didn't touch. Not really, but they came close enough that I felt the air shift. Like the space between us tightened for half a second. I pretended to focus on the machine. It was just an old silver laptop. A few dents. Keys a little worn. Something about it reminded me of her, slightly bruised by life, but holding together with that impossible kind of grace people don't realize they have. "What happened to it?" I asked. "It froze while I was working." She didn't elaborate. Her eyes flicked away, the way someone looks at something far behind you rather than you yourself. I could have asked what she was working on, but something in her posture, shoulders pulled closer to herself, fingers tapping once against the counter, made me choose not to. She didn't want questions. Not yet. I plugged the laptop in, pressed a few keys. It hummed like an old car in winter. "You can wait here," I said. "It might take a few minutes." She looked around the small shop. Too small space, mismatched chairs, a pot of coffee that had been sitting there since morning. She took the seat by the wall, crossing one leg over the other, and for a moment I forgot what I was doing. Every time I glanced up, she wasn't looking at me. She was studying the shelves, the window, the door, everywhere except directly at me. But she wasn't avoiding me. It was something else. Like she was rebuilding a story she didn't want anyone to read. Halfway through the reboot, the screen unexpectedly flickered back to life. "Oh," she breathed out. Not relief, more like disbelief. "You got it working." Her voice softened around the edges, just briefly. "It wasn't much," I said. But she shook her head, slow. "You'd be surprised how many things don't come back that easily." I didn't know what she meant, not fully, but I felt the weight of it. She gathered her things, thanked me again. She was already halfway out the door when she stopped. Just for a beat. A small pause, like the first one. She didn't turn around, but her hand lingered on the door handle. Then she left, and I stood there, staring at the empty space she'd been sitting in, wondering why a stranger's unfinished sentence felt like it had hooked itself into me. I didn't know her name. She didn't know mine. But there was something in the way she paused, twice, that I still can't explain. And even now, I keep thinking about that moment she stopped at the door. Like she almost came back. Almost. But she never looked back. She came back 3 days later. Not with another broken device. She wasn't holding anything this time. Just standing outside the shop window, like she was debating whether she should come in at all. Her reflection hovered over the cluttered shelves inside, faint and unsure. When she finally pushed the door open, she gave a short breath of a laugh. "I'm not here for a repair. I just needed help transferring some files. If you're not too busy." I wasn't busy at all, but I told her, "I can make time," because it felt less eager. She gave a small nod, the kind that said thank you without saying it. I led her to the desk at the back. The shop felt quieter today, as if someone had turned down the whole world's volume. She sat beside me, not close enough to touch, but close enough that I could pick up the faint scent of something citrusy on her skin, clean and tired at the same time. The laptop whirred as I opened her folders. Dozens of documents, photos, voice memos, a whole life stacked into files. I didn't open anything. I only selected what needed to be transferred. Still, her hand drifted toward the screen, hovering protectively. "Don't worry," I said gently. "I'm not looking at anything." She smiled, the small, polite kind, but her fingers tightened around the edge of the table. "It's not that. I just don't know why it matters so much today." Her voice caught on the last word. Barely, but I heard it. I glanced at her, and that's when I noticed. Her eyes looked tired in the way that comes from holding something heavy for too long. Her nails were trimmed short, one slightly cracked. Her wrist had a faint white scar, small, but old. And when she exhaled, she pressed her lips together like she was sealing something inside. "You okay?" I asked, quietly, not pushing. "I'm fine," she answered too quickly. Then softer, "Sorry. Long week." That wasn't what she meant, but I didn't press. The progress bar crawled across the screen. She watched it like it was forcing her to wait for something she didn't want to face. I caught her rubbing her thumb against her palm. Small circles, nervous, repetitive. Not the kind of gesture a confident woman makes. Not unless she's unraveling, just a little. "You don't have to sit here," I said. "I can call you when it's done." She shook her head. "It's okay. I don't mind staying." A beat. Sometimes, being in a place that isn't yours feels easier. That was the first real thing she'd said to me. I turned away from the screen, pretending to check the cables so she wouldn't see the way that sentence hit me. We waited in silence, the air thick with everything neither of us dared to say. When the bar finally reached full, she let out the smallest sigh of relief. Quiet, involuntary, almost intimate in its honesty. "Thank you," she said, her voice low. She reached for the laptop, but our hands brushed, this time actually touched. Just a faint graze of skin. Quick. Accidental. But she froze for a fraction of a second. So did I? Then she pulled her hand back, a little too fast, eyes dropping to the floor like she'd crossed a line she wasn't supposed to acknowledge. And when she left, she didn't pause at the door this time. But she did look back. Just once. Soft. Uncertain. Like she was asking a question she wasn't ready to voice. It happened on a night she shouldn't have been out at all. Rain had been tapping against the shop windows for hours. That steady, stubborn kind that makes everything feel closer and quieter than it should. I was about to lock up when I saw someone standing under the awning, shaking water off her sleeves. Her. She wasn't carrying her laptop this time either. Just a thin coat, soaked at the shoulders. "You're still open?" she asked, brushing a strand of wet hair behind her ear. Something in her voice sounded like she already knew the answer. "For you, yeah," I said, before I could stop myself. She didn't call me out on it. She just stepped inside, closing the door softly behind her like she didn't want to disturb something fragile. "I had a meeting nearby," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Didn't think the rain would get this bad." It wasn't really an explanation, more like a placeholder for something she didn't want to say. "Do you want to wait until it slows down?" I asked. She nodded once, then hesitated before taking the same seat as last time. I brewed coffee, the cheap stuff, and set a mug in front of her. She curled her hands around it, absorbing warmth like she needed the heat more than the drink. For a while, we didn't talk. The rain filled the silence, steady and protective. Her shoulders relaxed, then tensed again, like her body couldn't decide if it was allowed to rest. "You ever have one of those days," she said suddenly, eyes fixed on the dark window, "where you say one wrong thing and everything falls apart?" I looked at her, really looked. The faint smudge of tiredness under her eyes, the way her thumb kept tracing the mug's rim, the stiffness in her posture that didn't match the softness of her voice. "Yeah," I said quietly, "more than I want to admit." She gave a small breath of a laugh, but it cracked halfway. Not a dramatic break, just a tiny fracture. Something real. She opened her mouth as if to say more, but then her phone buzzed on the table. She stiffened. The name on the screen flashed for half a second before she turned it over. A man's voice leaked faintly from the speaker. Even muffled, the tone was sharp, irritated. "Sorry," she whispered. I should take this." But she didn't. Instead, she pressed the phone against her chest, eyes closed for one brief, painful moment. Then she silenced the call without answering. "It's complicated," she murmured, finally meeting my gaze. I didn't ask who he was. I didn't need to. The way her jaw tightened told me enough. You don't have to explain, I said. Her shoulders dropped the smallest bit. Not relief, not trust, just, let's wait for a second. The rain hit harder outside, echoing the tension in the tiny shop. She leaned forward slightly, elbows on her knees, hands clasped. I found myself mirroring her without meaning to. We were too close. Not touching, but close enough to feel the warmth between us. Close enough to feel the question hanging in the air. Her breath hitched, soft, almost inaudible. I shouldn't be here, she whispered. I know, I whispered back. Neither of us moved. Not away, not closer. The moment stretched, tight, fragile, dangerous. She lifted her hand, just slightly, like she was about to touch mine. Then, a knock on the shop door. Sharp, sudden, shattering. She pulled her hand back instantly, breath catching in her throat. And I was left staring at the empty space between us, the one she almost crossed. The knock on the door stopped as quickly as it came. Whoever it was must have realized the lights were dim and moved on. But the moment didn't come back. Not the way it was. She sat there, hands folded too neatly, breath too controlled, eyes fixed on a spot on the floor that wasn't interesting enough to hold anyone's attention, unless they were trying hard not to look at the person in front of them. You okay? I asked, my voice lower than I meant. She nodded, but the movement was shaky, almost reluctant. I'm fine, she said. The lie was softer this time, worn down by everything left unsaid. The shop hummed quietly around us. The rain eased into something gentler, but inside, it felt like the air had thickened, like every breath had to push through something invisible. She finally looked up at me, and her expression threw me off. Not sad, not angry, something rawer, like she'd run out of places to hide whatever had been tightening inside her. We can't keep doing this, she said. My heart thudded, not fast, just hard. Doing what? I asked, even though I knew exactly what she meant. Voices stayed low, both of us speaking like we might break something if we were too loud. She exhaled slowly, fingers tightening around each other. This, whatever this is, it's getting strange. Strange. She said it like the word only scratched the surface. She glanced toward the window, but the reflection didn't offer her a way out. Her eyes flicked back to me, almost unwillingly. I don't come to repair shops because I need company, she whispered, as if admitting it made it too real. And I don't linger. I don't stay places I shouldn't. Her voice wasn't steady. That frightened me more than anything else. You're not doing anything wrong, I said. She laughed, a single, breathless sound. Not amused. More like disbelief. I'm sitting in a closed shop, at night, with someone I barely know. I didn't answer a call I should have answered. You think that's nothing? I swallowed. I think you needed a place to breathe. Her eyes softened, not warm, just unguarded. A kind of naked truth neither of us had reached before. Then she said quietly, You make it too easy to breathe. That's the problem. I didn't know what to say to that. My hands were still on my knees, but I could feel the temptation to reach out, to steady her, to steady myself. I stayed still, very still. What are we doing? She asked, barely a whisper. The question didn't ask for romance. It asked for clarity neither of us had. I thought about lying, about saying it was nothing, that she was reading too much into it. But the silence between us was already too honest for that. I don't know, I said, but it feels like we crossed something we can't go back from. Her breath caught, not from surprise, but from the fact that someone had finally said it. We can't let this happen, she murmured. We can't. She stood then, slowly, as if her body wasn't sure it wanted to move. She reached for her coat, took one step toward the door, then stopped. Not turning, not speaking, just standing there, her back to me, shoulders rising and falling with a breath that sounded too much like surrender. And then she said, barely audible, Please, don't make this harder for me. She didn't come back the next day, or the day after. I kept telling myself it was good, healthy even. We needed space. She needed boundaries. I needed to stop replaying that night, every time I caught the smell of rain on someone's coat. But on the third evening, just as I was flipping the sign to closed, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I left something in your shop. Could I pick it up? No name. No explanation. But I knew. I wrote back. Sure. I'm here for another hour. I shouldn't have added the last part. I didn't delete it. 20 minutes later, she appeared in the doorway like she was stepping into a memory she wasn't ready to revisit. She didn't walk all the way in. She hovered near the entrance, holding her coat too tightly around herself. You forgot something? I asked gently. She nodded and reached into her bag. Then she stopped. No, froze, her fingers lingering on a sealed envelope I hadn't seen before. She looked at it like she was debating whether to hide it or hand it over. I got this yesterday, she said quietly. In the mail. Her voice shook, not visibly, but in the way a tired chair creaks. I don't know why I'm giving it to you. I shouldn't. She placed the envelope on the counter as if it weighed more than paper should. I didn't touch it. She stepped back, arms folding across her chest. It's not for you, she added, almost apologetic. It's about you. My breath stalled. About me? Well, not you specifically. Just, she rubbed her forehead with a thumb and closed her eyes briefly. Someone you remind me of. A strange heaviness settled in the room. I lost him, she said, voice almost a whisper. Years ago. Young. Too young. Everything between us was complicated. She laughed softly, but it was humorless. I guess I didn't realize how much of him I'd buried until I walked into your shop. She wasn't looking at me anymore. She was looking at the floor, at the memory, at something behind her eyelids she clearly didn't want to face. I knew what she meant. Not the details, the feeling. Being compared to someone gone felt intimate and inappropriate all at once. I didn't know if I should feel honored or like I'd accidentally trespassed into her grief. You don't need to explain, I said, even though she already had. I do, she whispered. Because this, she gestured vaguely between us, the space we kept trying and failing to maintain, isn't about you. It's about something I didn't realize I was still carrying. Something in her posture collapsed then, not visibly, but internally. Her shoulders curved inward, her chin dipped. The honesty was draining her in real time. I'm sorry, she murmured. I didn't come here to unload all of that. I thought you should know why I pushed you away. I picked up the envelope, slowly, carefully. It wasn't heavy, but it felt like a confession folded into cardstock. Do you want me to open it? I asked. She shook her head, eyes suddenly glassy. No, I just needed you to know it exists. Her hand brushed my wrist. Unintentionally, I think, but the touch left a faint tremor in the air, like a struck tuning fork. She stepped back, ready to leave, ready to run. But at the door, she paused. Not the uncertain kind of pause, a decisive one. Then she said, voice barely holding together, you're nothing like him. And that's what scares me most. I didn't open the envelope. Not that night. Not the next morning. Not even when I kept catching myself reaching for it, as if it might start breathing on its own. Instead, I slipped it into the drawer under the counter and told myself I'd deal with it later, which really meant when I'm brave enough. But she didn't wait that long. 2 evenings after her confession, just as I was locking up, the door pushed open with a soft click. She stepped inside quietly, like the air itself invited her in. No coat this time. No pretext. No laptop. Just her. She closed the door behind her, but didn't move farther than a few steps. She looked lighter. Not relaxed. Not unburdened. Just less at war with herself. I wasn't sure you'd want to see me, she said. I leaned back against the counter. I wasn't sure if you wanted to be seen. She exhaled through her nose, a faint laugh escaping. The tired kind, but real. Fair. Silence settled between us again, but it wasn't the sharp, suffocating kind we'd been drowning in before. It was softer, like the kind you sit in when both people know something is shifting, but neither wants to break it too fast. She stepped forward finally, stopping on the opposite side of the counter. No reaching. No hesitation. Just presence. I've been unfair to you, she said quietly. I kept treating you like a memory instead of a person. You corrected that the moment you walked away, I said. Her lips curved faintly. I walked away because I was afraid I'd do the opposite. The honesty landed between us with a strange, steady warmth. She rested her hands on the counter, palms down, fingers spread slightly. A small thing. A vulnerable thing. The kind people do when they're anchoring themselves. You don't owe me anything, she murmured. Not understanding, not patience, not whatever this is becoming. I moved closer, not too close, just enough that the distance wasn't a wall anymore. I'm not here because I owe you anything, I said. I'm here because I want to be. Her eyes lifted to mine, slowly, searching for something she didn't name. She didn't step back this time. She didn't fold her arms or look at the floor or let her voice retreat into that guarded version of herself. Instead, she turned her hand sideways on the counter, subtle, almost invisible, creating a space beside it. Not a request, not an invitation, just space. I placed my hand next to hers. Not touching, just close enough that the warmth crossed the inches between us. She inhaled shakily. Her fingers curled instinctively, brushing mine. The faintest graze, like a question she was finally ready to ask without words. I don't know where this goes, she whispered. Neither do I said. We stood there in the quiet hum of the shop, her hand half under mine, the night pressing softly against the windows. No promises, no vows, no perfect moment, just the unspoken truth settling between us, steady and undeniable. She exhaled, and for the first time since I met her, it didn't sound like she was holding something back. Then, barely audible, she said, "Just don't disappear on me." People always imagine the turning point happens in a kiss, or a confession, or some movie moment that leaves the whole world rearranged. But looking back now, the moment that changed us wasn't loud at all. It was her hand resting next to mine on that counter. Not touching, not pulling away, just there. A quiet truce. A permission neither of us had the courage to speak at the time. I didn't know then that years later, I'd remember that silence more vividly than anything that came after. She once told me that she hated being seen when she wasn't ready. "It makes me feel like I'm made of glass," she said. She laughed when she said it, but it wasn't a joke. What I don't think she realized, at least not then, was that she'd been transparent to me long before either of us admitted what we were doing. Not in a way that made her fragile, in a way that made her real. Now, sitting here and replaying those early nights, I can see all the things I couldn't name back then. The way her voice softened when she let her guard slip. The way she lingered in doorways like she was testing the air before stepping into it. The way she kept apologizing for feelings she didn't want but couldn't outrun. And me, trying to pretend I was unaffected when every small gesture from her felt like a stone dropped into a still lake. I was younger, sure, but not naive. I knew that whatever we were building didn't fit neatly into anyone's expectations. And maybe for the first time in my life, I didn't care. She changed the way I listened, the way I slowed down, the way I understood quiet, not as emptiness, but as a language. She taught me that connection isn't always loud or obvious. Sometimes it's two people breathing in the same space, not running from what scares them anymore. And somewhere along the way, without either of us meaning to, the space between us stopped feeling dangerous and started feeling like home. I don't think love announces itself. I think it accumulates, in sidelong glances, in half-spoken truths, in the courage to stay one more minute longer than you should. That's what happened to us. Not an explosion, a settling. The day she finally reached for my hand without hesitation. I think that was the day we both understood we'd already crossed into something neither of us could pretend away anymore. We didn't promise each other anything dramatic. We didn't need to. We just chose to stay, and kept choosing. And if someone asked me now what I learned from all of it, from her, I'd say this: sometimes the quietest moments are the ones that rewrite you. And sometimes the person you never expected to matter becomes the one you can no longer imagine navigating the world without. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?